Welcome to Heal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share to our podcast on all of your social media platforms or all of our social media platforms. Also, make sure you're checking us out on our new YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. That's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. That is our new YouTube channel where you can find not only the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but you'll also be able to find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, which is our sister podcast. So make sure you guys are checking us out there. I definitely want you guys to be able to stay in contact with us, follow us with all of our podcasts on our network channel. We have several podcasts there, including the two that I just mentioned. But you can find us all the podcasts there. Also, our product of the week. As you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you amazing products for you to purchase. That way we stay on the air. And so our product of the week is our purpose journal as well as our purpose planner, because I believe we should journal in order to keep track of where we've been and where we are, as well as plan for our future. So you can get your copy of our purpose journal and our purpose planner on Amazon. The links are in the description. Make sure you guys go and check out the descriptions anyway, because there are some great information and other links that's also in the descriptions that you may want to take advantage of. So make sure you guys are checking us out there. Today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Lewis. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I am good, man. I am good. First of all, let me say thank you for being here. Because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So, John, we're going to jump right into this thing. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
All right. My name is John Lewis Clark. The reason why I go by J. Lewis is simple. Everybody knows who John Lewis is. So I cut it down a little bit. But I am a single father life coach. And what I do is talk to single men about the fact that the single fatherhood journey is what I call the greatest experience that you never want to have. But if you are forced into it, realize that it gives you the opportunity to learn how to become a whole new individual, a 2.0 version of yourself. You're not going to lose the person you were, but you're going to acquire so much more from that. So that's my whole thing, is letting single fathers know that the experience that you go through, it's a challenge, but challenge is opportunity. Challenge is not a roadblock. Challenge allows you to get to your better version of yourself. It's growing pains. It's learning.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're going to definitely get into that. Before we jump into that, one thing that I do know about you, John, is that you are a girl dad. And so whenever I have a girl dad on like myself, I always start off with asking two questions. Number one, what does it mean for you to be a girl dad? And number two, what is something that your daughters have taught you?
To be a girl dad is the greatest experience of my life, and I'm dead serious about that because I um I think we talked about this off air. I You think about the fact that you're not gonna be able to do all these different things, because you have a girl versus having a boy,
Mm,
but it's not true. Now, what I learned was that my two girls, they played soccer, and both of them were so fierce. They were captains of their team in their respective years in high school. My youngest daughter got a scholarship to Brandeis University on it, and she became. I mean, put it this way: they put her on the wall in the gym.
mm.
That how good she was, and I had the chance to see so many different things. I mean, I follow the girls' game. I don't even watch the guys' game. You know, I follow the girls' game. My daughter came home to hang out with me for a little while, and it was during the World Cup, the Women's World Cup. We were getting up at like 2 o'clock in the morning watching matches, like literally setting the clock, like go ahead and get 3 hours of sleep, get up, because there's a game going on. And I mean, when you find that whatever you could have something in common with your daughter, it's interesting. And if even if they didn't gravitate towards sports, I learned how to cook
Mm.
because obviously when my wife died, it was either that or starve. So I learned how to cook, and I that became a real bonding experience between me and the girls because look, I taught them how to cook and they're way better than me.
Mhm.
And it's you know, like when, for instance, when my daughters come to hang out with me, we will go tit for tat, day for day. Like, I'm cooking Wednesday, okay, I'm cooking Thursday, that type of thing. And one is always trying to kind of top the other a little bit, you know. So you learn that you have the ability to do so many things, and they have the ability to understand that you are doing everything you need to do to
Mhm.
accommodate their world. So
Yeah.
I'm blessed in that respect. Very blessed.
Love it, love it, love it. So, John, we're gonna jump right into this thing because you mentioned a little bit prior about your wife passing away. So tell us, let's go back in the story because now you are, a single father and you're coaching single fathers, but you didn't start off that way, right? So let's kind of go back to who was John prior and what was your life like before, unfortunately, having to be having to transition into this fatherhood space.
Well, I was with my wife. We were married 17 years,
Mm,
but we were together 26. I met her my freshman year in college. We went to Hampton together.
mm,
And, we built a life, built a relationship, and I thought we'd grow old together, put it that way.
yeah.
But God had a different plan. And when my two daughters were 13 and 16, my wife got sick. She passed away from pneumonia.
Mm,
And she spent a month in the hospital. She was really touch and go. And she was in a coma a lot of the time, and then unfortunately she passed. Now, what was interesting is that when things like that happen, you realize who your friends are.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I didn't have many of them because they all knew me as a couple. They knew me and Kim, you know, and it took me a long time to understand that. It took me a few years. But then I also realized something. I was blessed because you know what? I didn't need to be around those type of people. And also it allowed me to look in the mirror at myself because if they were doing that to me, I must have been that type of person.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there's a karma situation that happens. And you just got to learn how to deal with it. But the one thing about a karma type situations, if you learn from it, it becomes an experience that allows you to become a different version of yourself. And I keep on harping on that different version thing because I tell people all the time that being a different version of you is not a total transformation. What it is, it's I use the iPhone. I said we're on like iPhone 16, but even iPhone 16 has elements of the first iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to become a better version of you only means that you're adding to your skill set. You're not it doesn't mean, you know, change your hair and change your clothes and all. I mean, if you want to, you know, but it doesn't mean that you have to do all those things. You can be the same person you are, but understand that you have new skills, new talents, new abilities. You've raised your game.
Yeah. And I think, I think that's important. And one of the things I want to touch on is that when you're going from who you are or who you were, and you're going through this transition of becoming this new person, as your circumstances change, you change as well. And like you mentioned about, your friends were used to seeing you guys as a couple. You know what I mean? And so sometimes we have to even give ourselves grace and our friends grace, our circle grace, because we're all used to what we're used to. And so when you change the dynamics, it changed for you, but it changed for them too. So if
Right.
they if their perception of you was with you and your wife as a couple, now as a single person, you change the perception. They might not know how to adjust. You know what I'm saying? Even in that space. And so, we have to give them grace as well as give ourselves grace, because it is a transitional phase, right? And so when we talk about transition, since we mentioned a transition, and we think about, your fatherhood journey of going from a two-parent household and now transitioning into this single fatherhood, how much of that was a challenge, and changing and getting, and getting to that space, and even with the single fathers that you coach, how much is it a challenge for them also to even just get into that mindset of, what, I'm a father, yet and still without, whether it's support, with support, without support, however that looks, I'm still a father.
Well, let me tell first off, the transformation, man, it took a while. It was crazy. It really was because I had to become accustomed to things that I wasn't accustomed to. For instance, I, I'll break down a quick story.
Mm-hmm.
My it was about maybe 5 or 6 weeks after my wife had passed, and my youngest daughter was going through her womanhood experience,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, she was like, "Dad, I need you to go to the store. I need this. I need. She didn't know what to get, and I didn't know what to get. I knew what to get for my wife because she would just give me the box and I go. You know, but I sat there in the grocery store, in the pharmacy aisle forever. Now, look, because you know how we are as men, we don't even ask for directions, so you know we ain't gonna ask for that. But
Yeah.
this lady walks up to me, and I think she was kind of looking at me like, "What? Are you perverted? What? You know?" And I end up having to, I explained to her the story, and she says to me, she goes, "I'm gonna help you." And so she got all the things that I needed. And the last thing she said to me, she goes, "You are going to look like a hero when you go home." And when I went home, my daughter was like, "Dad, you got everything I needed. It's all good." You know, so now I'm patting myself on the back a little bit just because, you know what? I'm learning something. And that's really what it comes down to. Everything is a learning experience.
Mm.
That's what I tell my single fathers is realize that you are learning every step of the way. Everything you're doing, even the challenges you're experiencing, are fortifying you. They're giving you resilience. They're forging you. Now, how you look at it is the key.
Mm.
You can choose to look at it as some type of detriment. But if you look at it that way, you will unfortunately be stuck in position. On the other hand, if you make the decision to find a way to use these circumstances to your advantage,
Yeah.
you can build an incredible relationship. Like I said, I mean, I learned that another situation, which your girl dad, you know this one.
Mhm.
Listen, I remember one day come home and I see my daughter. I'm like, "Baby, how you doing? How's everything? How's your dad?" She just broke down crying. She's about 15 at this point. And I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? What happened? What's wrong, sweetheart?" And she tells me that her boyfriend cheated on her. Now I'm sitting there, and in my mind, I'm like, "Why you got a boyfriend?" That's the first thing.
Right.
And so, but then I realized if I harp on that, I'm going to be the second man to break her heart today.
Mm. I like that.
So, so I had to, my wife's name was Kim. And I always have to say, like, I had to get my inner Kim on.
Mhm.
And so now at that point, I said to her, what any dad would do, you know what? Baby, let's go out and eat. You can want anything you want on the menu, dessert to daddy got you. Don't stress it. If you and then I said, if you want to talk about it, we can. It's all good. A few years later, she actually brought that up. She said, "Dad, I can talk to you about like almost anything." She goes, "I remember when I was dealing with this particular situation and the way you handle it." And she's like, and now we talk about almost anything. There's certain things that I ain't talking about, but almost anything we have conversation about. And she respects what I'm going to say about it. You know, we can agree to disagree.
Mhm.
In a lot of situations, though, we find common ground. We find commonalities,
Yeah.
and you know, it's the blessing behind that is the fact that now you can do what you need. Same thing with my older daughter. My older daughter has no problem calling me and asking for advice, asking for information, you know, and I'm so blessed and proud to give it to her because there are a lot of fathers, single or married, they don't want to deal with this stuff,
Yeah.
you know. And when you're in a position where you're kind of forced to deal with it, it becomes it becomes an easier situation. When as humans, when our back is up against the wall and we're out of our comfort zone, that's the only way we're going to figure out how to make something happen. Because when you're in your comfort zone, you're comfortable.
Right.
Everything you figure everything's gonna work. But when your
Yeah.
back is up against the wall, you figure it out. And many situations as a single father, my back was up against the wall. And that's what I tell my clients is that understand that when your back's up against the wall, you come out swinging and you come out making sure that what you are doing is learning in that process.
Yeah.
Don't fight the situation because if you
Yeah.
fight against the situation, it's going to work against you because see, life got big fists
Yeah.
and it's going to put you in a situation where you're going to be beyond uncomfortable. But if you learn how to roll with the tide, it's like I talked about before with the whole using water thing. Bruce Lee said, when you become water, it's like understand that when water goes into a cup, it takes on the form of a cup.
Hmm.
Same thing with a bottle. It can also crash like a river. But when you learn to become water in that respect, you can deal with the ebbs and the flows of a circumstance.
Yeah.
And you can learn how to manage through it because you're building around the circumstance, around the situation. It's working to your advantage.
Yeah. I wanna touch on two things that you mentioned earlier. One, you mentioned about having to go to the store and get the things that your daughter needed for her personal at that time. I have a I think I did two earlier episodes with a friend of mine, Dr. Carmen, and her whole program, how we even came to contact with each other because her program is built um, with talking with fathers and helping them to navigate during that time period, right? And when their daughters are going through that transition, because one of the things that she teaches is like that is one of the most um, critical times in the father daughter relationship. And also, it's one of the worst times because generally during that time, the father disconnects himself, right? Because he's like, oh, I don't want to be doing that. You know what I mean? Like you said, going to that aisle, like, that one aisle that we always skip. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't want to be down that aisle. But she teaches about, like, no, this is the time as a father that you really want to come closer to your daughter because she's changing, number one, and she needs to know that she has your support during that time period. And so you guys can go back into the episodes of the podcast. I don't know which episode it was off the top of my head, but I think I did two episodes with Dr. Carmen. But those episodes is there. But I think that's really important, and I definitely talking to her and even talking through my own experience because I've never been one that was kind of felt some type of way about going down that aisle because I got five sisters. You know what I'm saying? plus, plus ex-wife and a daughter, so I'm like, I'm really comfortable with that aisle. I'm like, all right, whatever. You know what I mean? But I know all our men aren't. But I think that's important. Like I learned from Dr. Carmen, like that is a time period where, as fathers and men, a lot of times we disconnect from that with our daughters, but that's actually a time period where we want to come closer to build that relationship, and to look like the hero, like you did in that sense, which navigates into that next point that you talked about, which was having being comfortable enough to talk about anything, to have that conversation, because in that most vulnerable state, of that transition into womanhood, if you show up then she knows it's easy for you to show up in everything else, and so you can have those conversations about whatever that comes up, that she feels free to be like, all right, let me call my daddy, daddy, I need to talk about this, or this happened to me, and open up that the door of that free communication and build that bond of communication that you guys need as father and daughter. And I think that's very important. One of the things that I do want to talk about too, we talk about, kind of going through, once we're in this single father space, how do we navigate it? And we can't talk about being a single father without talking about parenting and co-parenting, right? Because we didn't become a father by ourselves, most of us, unless we adopted. But most of us didn't come a father by ourselves. You know what I mean? There was somebody that was a part of that, process, should I say? But now that we're here as a father, as fathers, we may not be married, or whatever the situation is, that now that we're acting as a single father, um, but we're not the only parent, should I say? You know what I mean? So talk to us a little bit about, even, some of the experiences that you may have had to work through with some of your clients, even to get them to understand the importance of co-parenting or good co-parenting. You know what I mean? Without all the conflict, but really realizing one of the things that I teach guys, when I talk about how I even got started into podcasting and everything, was dealing with fatherless daughters and having a conversation with fathers that are coming back into their daughters' lives after being going away for a while. And I'm like, you got to meet them where they are. You can't come in and try to be, who you think, you should be as far as dad. Like, oh, I'm daddy. Like, no, you're a stranger, really, because you haven't been here. So you got to come in and work through that and earn that position. But again, just in your experience talking to the single fathers that you coach, how do you kind of help them to navigate that space of co-parenting?
It's interesting. I'm actually doing a talk on this in October. It's I talk to single fathers about the experience I call prevent defense.
Mm-hmm.
And I let them know that in prevent defense, obviously in football terms, it's that impenetrable defense where nobody can get through. But then I said, sometimes you got a Tom Brady and Gronkowski type of thing. And they going to score. When they score, it doesn't mean you're going to lose the game. It just means you have to show up your defense. So now you're a single father. Like in the space of fathering, that prevent defense is trying to prevent you from becoming a single father. But you couldn't. But it doesn't mean that, like I said before, it doesn't mean the game's lost. It just means that you have to learn how to parent different. And co-parenting is part of that difference. For instance, it goes back to the using water concept. I was saying to recently, I was talking to a client about the fact that I said, he's like, man, she wants to, you know, hit me with all this from the judge and this. I said, brother, understand something. You can prevent it from getting to that point,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to again raise your emotional intelligence to have that conversation. Oh man, she wants all the. So I said, here's what you're gonna do. Here's what you can do. I said, have a conversation in a public space. Don't do it in your house or in her house or in your friend's house or nope. Go to a restaurant, go to a park. So, as a matter of fact, call her up and say, "Hey, listen, you know, let's just have let's go out to eat somewhere. We were friends before all this.
Mhm.
Let's just go out to eat between two friends." And then I said, grab a pad and pen, bring that with you. What's going to happen when you get there? She's going to say, "Why you have the pad and pen?" You're raising your emotional intelligence, and that's now forcing her to raise hers because she knows you are the real deal with this. And you tell her, "I want to write down everything you're saying, and I want to find out how we can negotiate and meet each other halfway. Look, things didn't work out between us, but
Mhm.
we have a bond forever in our child. So let's figure out how to work this thing right." And then I said to him, I said, "You got to learn how to separate the relationship that you had from the relationship you have now.
Mhm.
The relationship you have now is with your child. The relationship you had is gone."
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, and then I said, "You can win in this situation." "How you talking about that?" He's like, I said, say she decided to want to go out with her girls, or maybe she got a new boyfriend. You know what? If you tell her, "Hey, listen, instead of sending the kids to your mom's, let me have them for the weekend. So you can go ahead and do your thing, enjoy yourself, handle your business." Matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll call your parents and I'll ask them, do you want the kids for a little while? A couple hours, or you want them to spend the night? I'll even call my parents. This way, the child gets an experience with their grandparents. You get time out with your man or your girls. And guess what happens? If your parents want the kid for the night, I got the night off. It's a win, win, win all the way around. But it takes you raising your emotional intelligence to see this. Because if you don't, you're going to block your blessings.
Yeah.
But it means you have to give something up to get something. And why be upset about a relationship that you no longer are in? Let that part go. Agree that, hey, you know what? It was beautiful while it lasted, but now it's not no longer. Go on, enjoy. I said, on top of that, you might find a woman that cares for you the way you want them to care for you.
Right.
And so, again, the whole thing is about stop, do not block your blessings, do not allow your emotions to override the logic of a circumstance. So, that's my whole thing. I said, when it comes to effective co parenting and when it comes to effective parenting, period, create a scenario that works for everyone. And in doing that, you look like the hero because she's like, your ex girl is like, "Yeah, we ain't get along, but he is not a bad father at
Yeah.
all." It's a
Yeah.
win.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we're able to navigate those, those relationships. And one of the things that you mentioned that I think is very important on both sides is realizing that okay, the relationship might be over, yet and still it didn't start it didn't start from a bad place. You know what I mean? Like it might have ended in a bad place, but it didn't start at a bad place. And so if you can look past the situation at hand, you know, how much you guys might not be seeing eye to eye, and just remember there was a time that I loved this person. So there's something about this person that I love, that I was, you know, intrigued about to even come into this space, to be at the point now that we have a child together. You know, so we're able to look past that and just give each other that space of grace. um you know, then we can, it'll help navigate this space of the co-parenting space. And one of the things that I like that you mentioned too, and I mentioned a little bit before we start recording, which I always talk about, is the fact that you may have been friends first. You know what I mean? And just because the relationship ended doesn't mean your friendship had to end. And I talk a lot about my, you know, my ex-wife, who's one of my oldest friends. We went to kindergarten together. That's how far back we go. You know, and so even though when we got to the point where we decided that, you know, the marriage wasn't, you know, producing what we wanted it to produce, and we decided to get a divorce, one of the things that was very important to us is that we don't lose our friendship, even though we're losing the marriage, because we're friends longer than we're married. You know what I mean? And so we're able to navigate that space and have the hard conversations and how do we want to see this thing go, and to the point that now we're still great friends. And what's even more important to me when we're talking about the co-parenting is her relationship with my daughter, you know, because they have their own relationship outside of me that have nothing to do with me. But my daughter has this person that she can call on, and she can, you know, have confidence in, and have the conversations that she won't have with me. You know, she has someone that she go to and have these conversations with, and things of that nature. So I'm very, you know, grateful about that relationship. But that took some maturing, you know, from me and from her, you know, to be able to be in that space where, you know, we could be around each other. We still could be friends despite, you know, different things that happen. But you know, so in that co-parenting space, it takes, it's some give and take. Like you said, there's some things you're gonna have to give up, you know, in order to get what you want. And it's some navigation and, you know, meeting in the middle. And really you have to be on a certain emotional stage to be able to even have those conversations, and think logically and not emotionally, you know, and not lead with your emotions, but actually think and work through those conversations. John, before we get out of here, man, I know that you're working. Number one, you're working on a book, but also you are recently a part of another book. So tell us a little bit about the books, and so we can find out more about it, and then where we can find them at.
All right. Well, right now I have a book out on Amazon where I'm part of an anthology. It's called Men Grieve Too, and it's a, stories from about 10 guys that talked about their personal situations related to the grief they're dealing with. Because a man, a man has to hold in his grief a lot of times because
Mhm.
everybody has a certain expectation of a man. But when that happens, it can be what I call a pressure cooker effect. And it can cause some serious damage if that man doesn't understand. And the great part about the book is that, you know, a lot of the men talked about going through that experience, talked about having to hide their emotions, having to, you know, be in the bathroom or in the garage and cry by yourself because you don't want anybody to see it. You know, couldn't really talk with your friends because they don't understand your pain. But realizing that you can use different methods. It's I like the fact that you have one of your things out on Amazon is your journal.
Mhm.
And you know what? I explain to men all the time, journal. I mean, I journal every day. You know what I'm saying? I put three things that I'm grateful for every day into my journal, no matter what it is. And it's it's all out the box thinking. You can't one thing I say really quickly is that you can't you 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 have the schematics for a new house. You can't use old tools or old nails to
Mm.
build this new house. You need to explore the new tools. There may be protractors now you're using. There may be different things you're using. Understand that these new tools might be things like journaling, things like meditating, things like going for walks, things like pumping iron, exercising, all these versus going to the bar
Right.
or going to the dope man or 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 sitting in a pity party circle with a bunch of other guys. You know, those things are not going to solve your problem, but the other circumstances will allow you to move forward and find a way to address the issue. Again, it's not going to resolve it, but it's going to teach you how to learn how to grow through it.
Yeah. Yeah, and grief is one of those things you have to go through it. There's no way around it. You can't avoid it. Like the only way to learn to navigate it is to go through it. You have to walk alongside it. You know what I mean? Because it's not gonna go anywhere. Even if you push it off, it's not gonna go anywhere. And then the bad part about not addressing your grief is eventually it's gonna get tired of being pushed to the side and it's gonna push through, and if it pushed you at the wrong time, a lot of times it's going to be the time when you're not ready for it, and it's just going to show up, and you have to deal with your grief in the midst of that. So yeah, I look forward to that. That's actually I am big on grief and talking about grief. I did my TEDx talk, which you guys can find on YouTube. And I talked about, surviving suicidal ideation, which was a result of me having suicidal thoughts after, grieving the loss of my mom and my mother-in-law at the time. So yeah, I'm very into talking about grief, especially with men, because it is something that we don't talk about, a lot. So that's one book, but then you
But
also got another book that you're working on right now, right?
actually, I'm finished that book. It
Okay.
will be out on March 21st, which mark your calendars if you're a single father or a single mother. That is an official holiday. Ronald
Mm,
Reagan made Single Parents Day an official holiday on March 21st.
okay.
So it's coming out on that day. And the book is called Flying Solo. It talks about how to understand using the single parent experience to your benefit.
Mm,
It'll help you to grow. Put it this way, so many things that you may have never thought that you could do, but you were forced to learn them due to your situation, like cooking. Like I said, my wife was an incredible cook. Before she died, I couldn't even boil water. So, it's like I learned to cook. I became a podcaster. I wrote a book. I had no idea I had a book in me.
mm,
I counsel other men. You know, I'm having this. I definitely got to talk to you about the TED Talk thing because I want to do a TED Talk, but that's a whole different story.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and I'm a speaker. Like I said, I mean, I've got an event that I'm doing in October. I'm a keynote speaker for that one. And the point that I'm making is that all these things were birthed out of that grievous experience of loss.
Mm,
And I'm gonna say this before I head out. Um, like me and my wife, our last 2 years, we weren't seeing eye to eye at all. We were probably heading for divorce. But when she got sick, all that changed in my world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember I remember when I said to her one day, like she was in a coma. We were at the hospital. And I said to her, I said, baby, I'm real sorry for everything I ever said, anything I ever did. I'm sorry. You know. Are you still there? Are, are we still there? Oh,
Yeah,
my bad.
I just put you on the big screen. That's all.
Oh, all right. Yeah, but my bad. But like I said, so I said to her, I'm sorry. And what was crazy was, like I said, she was in a full coma at this point, but she woke up out of that coma and she said, I'm sorry too. Went back in the coma and died the next day.
Mm.
And I had to eat that because that was hard. And I think a big part of the reason why a lot of our friends weren't so cool with me was because, everybody knew me and Kim were on the brink of divorce. And it was just like all these things. And everybody was like, you know, why didn't you do a DNR? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Kim didn't want that. We talked about that years before. Unfortunately, her sister died. And she didn't want what happened to her sister to happen to her. Her whole thing was, yo, something happens to me, let me go. You know, I knew that, but her friends didn't know that. So everybody thought, I was just angry at her. But,
Right.
you learn to live with a whole bunch of different things. You learn to live with it. I mean, I I have a great relationship with the girls. They know why daddy did what he did. I my heart is okay with my wife because she knows that I made a decision in her best interest. She also knows that her and we had a difficult time, but you know what? We pieced it up a few hours before she died. So I'm cool.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. But hey,
Right.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah, good man, that's good. John, I want you to leave us, man, because we're gonna get ready to get out of here. I want you to leave us with a word of advice for our single dads, in navigating this space of single fatherhood, and especially as being the girl dads. And also, I want you to leave us with your social media handles and things of that nature, so we know where to find you and how to get in contact with you. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that. To my listeners, make sure you guys are checking us out at our main website, which is the dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, where we have more information about the organization as a whole. Also, make sure you guys check me out more so on my speakers website, which is ernestjamesspeaklife.com. Again, that's ernestjamesspeakslife.com to find out more information about to have me come out as a speaker or to facilitate a workshop for you guys. I really love doing the workshops. So yeah, you can go there again, ernestjamesspeaklife.com in order to check that out. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out for our ebooks that we have at ebooksbyejames.com. There are several ebooks that I have that I've written that is there for sale, including the core four, which is the core four values that every daughter should get from her father. That ebook that we actually talk about that ebook on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. I discussed that book with the other fathers that I have on there. And I have an ebook called Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self Forgiveness. We're talking a little bit about grief during this episode. That ebook helps you to kind of begin to forgive yourself, learn to forgive yourself of past grudges and griefs that you're holding against yourself. Again, that's Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self Forgiveness. But those ebooks and other ebooks can be found at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com. Make sure you guys go and check us out there. Our inspirational t-shirt line at deal2healtees.com. That's deal, the number 2, healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Make sure you guys go there and check out our inspirational t-shirt line that we have, as well as our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. We got one for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as one for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, that you can find those t-shirts at our inspirational t-shirt line, which is deal, the number 2, healtees.com, deal2healtees.com. Make sure you guys go there and check that out. Last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month talking about everything surrounding forgiveness. Forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world, just everything breaking down forgiveness, how it affects us, how it affects our bodies. Great conversation. These workshops are absolutely free, but the information that we give is priceless. Again, we have these workshops bi-monthly. So whenever you're listening to this episode, either a workshop just ended or a workshop is coming up. So make sure you guys go to forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our next free virtual workshop, or you can go to Eventbrite and look up the Forgiveness Workshop sponsored by the Forgiveness Mission in order to take part in our forgiveness workshops, which are absolutely free. But again, the information is priceless. So make sure you guys go there and check us out there. Mr. Lewis, first of all, let me say thank you again for being on the podcast, for sharing your story and your expertise. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
First off, thank you, Ernest, for giving me an opportunity to have this conversation on your show. Let me give my social media handles real quick. On TikTok and Instagram, it's at JLewis3 Motivation. J Lewis III Motivation. On YouTube, it's J Lewis 3 II or III Motivation 0108. You can catch my Facebook page, which is, as you can see up top, it's the Single Fatherhood Experience. You can go to my website, jl3motivation.com. And that's JL the number 3 motivation.com. So you could I've got hundreds of blog and article posts on there. I've got my podcast series that's on there, it just started. I'm not at 200 like you are. I'm at 60. But it is what it is, and it's just it's the opportunity. And if you are a single father, take an opportunity to touch base with someone who's been there, done that. And a lot of us as men, we don't want to get help from anybody else. But the reality is, even the best players in the world have coaches. Jordan had a coach. Kobe had a coach. Serena had a coach, because they want to see, there are things that you do that they can see that you don't. So a coach can help you navigate through these different aspects. Take the opportunity. Remember, You are the MVP of your family. So you need to be on point at every point.
All right. And we can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.